Well, the demo I've showed in the last couple of videos has been about using economic data or health data, like the data for COVID-19, analysing it using Ravel. But in fact, Ravel was first designed as a potential user interface for an old, what's called online analytic processing, or OLAP database called PC Express. That was about 30 years ago. And what's happened since then is that pivot tables have been developed. Unfortunately, PC Express got terminated by Oracle sometime in the early 2010s and was a command line system only, and everybody seems to use pivot tables these days. So what you do with a pivot table is you get data like this, which is mock transactional data for a company selling soft drinks. And you can see that obviously the salespeople aren't your not the usual career one associated with Michael Jackson. So you have information about the customers that are doing the buying, products are being sold, the salesperson who sold them, the region in which the sales occur, and then the order date. And this is what makes it into transactional data. And because this is mock data, it's not properly set out in the way that you would do for actual corporate data. Notice the data you want to look at is the sales, and that's stored in the middle of the whole thing. And then you have, as well as having the order date here, you have the year, the month, and the quarter all added together. So, but anyway, let's have a look at what one happens when one works in the pivot table approach. So you choose a pivot table. Excel recognizes the data range, insert the pivot table into an existing worksheet, and then what you get is this window, which is actually probably easier to see if I scale it down to just this level. And what you have to do is say, well, what I want to do is see sales as the value, and now it's defaulted for count. Let's just notice the numbers up here now. Let's make this, say, the sum of sales rather than the count. So that's your total sales there. And you want to see it by the products across this way and the salesperson doing the selling across this way. Then there's your pivot table. So it's fairly fast. Now what we want to do is approach this in an integrated fashion with Ravel. So what I do instead is I import the data. If you've watched one of the last videos, you'd see we were using a parameter beforehand. That's still sitting down here. We've now automated it. So the idea is to import the data, attach it to a Ravel, and then graph or put it in a spreadsheet and maybe associate it with variables for further analysis. So let's go for import the data, the file, which I had to massage to some extent to make it interpretable by Ravel first off, which is by putting the actual sales data in the final column, and then getting rid of creating an aggregated quarter dimension and getting rid of all the other time dimensions. That's now here. One thing I'll mention, notice if I bring the mouse over here, then I'm attached to the data import default parameter. Bring it back over here, I go across into the data importing. That's because of the design of Ravel, that the focus goes where the mouse is pointing rather than into a particular dialog box. So that's what's going on there. If that happens to you and you find you're doing this rather than working in the data, just move back to the right window. I'll make it a bit wider, and let's just take a look what we've got there. And again, I want to just grab hold of that window and move it a bit this way and that way. So it's the same basic data, and this is first of all interpreted as a string. It's actually a time dimension, and the format, and we're going to improve how we do this over time as well. The format has got the year and then a dash and the letter Q and a quarter. So I choose that, and that's going to bring in the information. Choose import, and then what I've got now, the parameter's been renamed to the name of the CSV file. I can edit that and just make it pretend, let's say pretend data, because that's what these things are. Okay, having done that, you simply attach it to a Ravel. So we do that, and now what Ravel does is show that data along the primary dimensions of the system. So the data display, which I'll just go back and find the sheet itself, the data source. Hang on, there we go. All this stuff has been interpreted into a 6-dimensional object. Now, of course, 6 dimensions are more than you can display with a spreadsheet or a graph. So I'll just actually attach our, at the moment, very primitive spreadsheet here. And if I try to execute it, it tells me this is only takes a two-dimensional object. I'm feeding a six-dimensional object to it. Well, let's go back and take a look at that sample that I just made up a moment ago. Where did it get to? Data source, one of these sheets here. Sheet 2, sheet 3, sheet 4. Okay, look at this one. This has got the salesman down the horizontal and the what they're selling across the vertical. So let's see if we can mock up that in Ravel, and how does one go about doing it. I'll just actually make this window smaller so that we can see what I'm trying to mock up and Ravel's version of it as well at the same time. So make that a bit smaller. And one spends a huge amount of one's time resizing things in Windows, doesn't one? Okay, hang on. So that's what I want to get there. Okay, well, that's got the products along the horizontal axis. So what I do is I flip the axis around so it's got products that way and the salesperson down this way. And then what I do is aggregate the dimensions, and I do that just by collapsing them. And oh, I've got them the wrong way around, so oh no, it's, yeah, okay, I think that might be an error interpretation. Let's do it that way. There we go. So now we have the salespersons one way and the products in the other way, and those numbers, again, we're going to have to improve the way we format these things. The numbers are using scientific notation will improve that over time as well. I should sort that so they're sorted in name order. So we start with Michael, let's see, Jackson. Where's our products? I've sorted the products. Now I want to sort the salesperson. Let's just make it a bit larger and get rid of that window there. Whenever you want to see something larger, you can zoom in using the scroll key, pardon me, or you can just hit the window to make this fit in full screen. And I'll just drag this one down here a bit and curve the line a bit so easy to see it underneath the whole thing. And now we rescale. Okay, so it gets rather messy when you've got that many elements to it, but let's grab this one. That's the salesperson. Let's flip it over here for the moment. So I want to sort that forward by name as well. So, and now what I've got Homer Simpson as a sales product person, and I've got all the channel partners showing up instead. Let's go back and make this salesperson over that way, and the products that way. So that is now emulating what you can see in that display over there, with the hassle at the moment of showing everything in scientific notation. Again, we're going to be working on the spreadsheet not before I release the program on Sunday to my patrons, of course, but over the time past then. So you can produce, make the summaries very easily. The operations do all the selection, which one you're looking at and so on. That is controlled by the Ravel rather than needing to insert separate controls, as you'll see are the case in a pivot table. If I say what are the sales in regions, then I drag out the region. There's the Americas, where it appears Michael Jackson as the salesperson, Ian Wrights for Europe, Mercolitis for Asia, and Homer Simpson for Africa. So again, it's possible that you control the slicing and dicing, which normally requires to insert separate controls in a pivot table, are all built into the Ravel object in Ravel. And you can also, of course, graph this. Let's just do a quick graph over here, so I can attach a graph there. If I want to freeze something, by the way, if I've got things looking the way I want them to, so let's bring this down here, and okay, so that's now too high a rank. So what I want to do is have this collapsed by region as well, and now I've got that information again. I can insert a lock and just delete this wire here and attach this through a, whoops, no, Ravel has a way of linking to the nearest input port when you do something like that. So I'll just now do it over here and recalculate, and then I can lock this object, and whatever I do to other parts of the interface won't affect the results of that calculation to produce that particular table. So that's been locked. Let's now do some other work on the Ravel here. So now let's see, I want to produce it by sales over time. So rather than having quarter totally aggregated, let's make quarter the horizontal axis of the chart, and then look at all salespeople, and whereabouts is my region. This is one part which is a bit hard to do at the moment because the aggregation tool, everything gets jumbled in terms of text. But if you move, you want to put that salesperson, that's channel partner, that's region, that is customer, and want to buy product. Let's do it by, let's just do it by product first of all. If I move the arrow key along, that's my product is bottles. No downward trend for product for bottles. So upward trend for ice cubes, going nowhere for soft drinks, and tonic doing the same sort of thing. So you can set up quite a complicated, if you wish to, interface for all this. If this was real data, then of course there'd be some sort of trend to look at there. You might see better performance in tonic than you see in soft drink. You can put them all into one chart if you want to, label it as well, of course. Yeah, so we have the capacity, and it's been designed for that reason, to analyze corporate data. So don't get fooled by the fact that I use it for economics only. This is really targeted at corporate users who want to analyze data rapidly and do it more rapidly than they can do in a pivot table, and with more aggregation options as well. One thing where you can see whenever I collapse an axis, I get the sum turning up. So this is the sum of sales of those products to the Americas, that's to Europe, that's to Asia, and that's to Africa. You might also want to see the average across regions and so on, or the standard deviation of sales, which at the moment all you see is the sum. That is just because we haven't actually made the option to have those, what we call reduction operations, on the existing Ravel. That may well be there by Sunday because the code already exists to do that. One thing which we don't do well yet is aggregating from, say, quarters to years. So at the moment, if I now move on and take a look at, let's move the arrow key here to 2012 quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4, etc., etc. I can do that, but I can't aggregate easily to year. So we're adding that code at the moment, so you'll be able to right-click on an axis like this and have it dimensioned by, at the moment it's dimensioned by quarter, dimensioned by year. It will aggregate for the year rather than for the quarter, go down to month, drill down, etc., etc. That'll all be coming in future versions, but not the one we're going to release on Friday to my supporters on Patreon.